The CGA Tour, a podcast unlike any other. Now your host, Calvin Alexander.
Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. As always, here I'm your host, Calvin Glen Alexander, hence the name. Your Oklahoma State guy here, and I am joined tonight by fellow Oklahoma State alum, fellow sports media student. Took me a second to remember which exactly I found you. I feel like we met through Sports Management Club 2 as well or something, is right, Sam? But Sam Henderson joining us, so thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me on, Calvin. And yes, we met through Sports Management Club. I was a sports management minor, but I was a sports media major.
Yeah, well, you're the guy with the info in Lawrence, but also the Oklahoma State alumni status here. So we're going to go through the Big 12 here, kind of do a way too early ranking of teams after the transfer portal in the spring has closed. Now, guys can still decide wherever to go. They can backdate their transfer portal entering date and do whatever they want to do. So I'm no by means at all saying, hey, transfer portal, this is it. Who knows what's going on at this point. But we are going to go through it a little bit here and talk about some teams that I think have some big expectations. So let's start off with Oklahoma State and the Cowboys here. Of course, going 3-9 last season. It was disappointing, but I mean, you're around a bunch of other, KU guys and gals in Lawrence there. What was your takeaway here from at least not being in the state of Oklahoma for the whole season?
Oh, it was just as devastating of a season being up in Kansas versus if I were still in Stillwater. Because you got to keep in mind, I'm the OSU guy to a lot of my friends here in Lawrence. So anytime they want an OSU point of view, they come to me. And yeah, it was doom and gloom last year. If I would have known the Tulsa win was going to be the last win OSU had of the season, I would have enjoyed it a lot more, but I expected there to be a few more after that. So yeah, it was tough to watch. A team that brought back 21 starters, including a Doak Walker Award winner, goes winless in conference. My brain can't fathom that, Calvin. It still cannot fathom that to this day. And I didn't even have KU to lean on being here in Lawrence because they had kind of a letdown of a season as well. They were expecting to take a step forward from a 9-4 year, and then they lost, I think, 6 of their 7 games by 1 score. They blew like 5 fourth quarter leads. So yeah, it was a forgettable football season for me.
It sounds like it for sure. I know the Stillwater fans, Oklahoma State fans, do not want to necessarily relive last season. So I'm trying to look ahead to this season here, give us projections, what could happen. I don't think there's any way we don't win a conference game this year. I also would say there's also a possibility we don't go to a bowl game. I mean, it just is everything's on the table. Nothing last year, as you said, returning on so many starters, Doak Walker, Award winner, and Ollie Gordon, makes me think, oh yeah, you know what? We're going to be great this season because for one simple fact, Ollie Gordon got drafted in the 6th round in the NFL draft, and he was not injured last year. Did not miss a game due to injury, from my understanding. So, could not have seen that coming whatsoever. If you had told me that, I would have bet Oklahoma State just didn't need him or something. I'm not sure what I would have bet at that point, or was kicked off the team. But anyways, we'll get into it here. Of the transfer portal rankings in the Big 12 here, Texas Tech leads the country, not just the Big 12, in transfer portal rankings. And right before we started recording, you were saying that there's a softball player going to Texas Tech as well, right?
Yeah, she's already there. Nyjah Kennedy is her name. She was the top star for Stanford a year ago, was their pitcher that led them, I think, to a World Series appearance. Entered the portal. She's from Topeka, so all the KU people thought they were getting her. And then she went to Texas Tech. So that tells me that Texas Tech's investments in their athletic programs is going up across the board, which also is carrying into football, given the transfer portal class they're bringing in for football specifically. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on over in Lubbock. I don't know if they just don't have anything else to spend their money on out there, but the investment is real out there for their sports teams.
Yeah, I don't know the closest pro team to Texas Tech. I want to say is a Dallas area sports team, but Lubbock is so far from Dallas. It's quite mind-boggling just how big of a state Texas is that I'm not sure what else they could be spending their money on when it comes to athletics, as you point out. I've been to Lubbock twice. Both times I thought, wow, the facilities here are newer and nice, and this is great. This is in 2012. was the last time I went out there. But it kind of surprised me, I got to say. I mean, all of a sudden you're seeing these big buildings and this really nice freeways, interstate, all type of stuff. So we know the oil money is really prevalent, but I did also not see a on-free projection of adjusted NIL value of plus $5.5 million, where looking at Oklahoma State here, for example, just contrasting a little bit, Oklahoma State, we're apparently minus $66,000. I'm not sure how On3 comes up with all these stats here and everything, but I did just want to reference, like, Oklahoma State is either right at nothing adjusted or maybe a little bit more or whatever it may be. But Texas Tech is outspending everyone in the Big 12 by multiple millions of dollars in adjusted NIL value, which is insane for me to believe. And I got to think that kind of means they'll do really good in the Big 12. At least the odds makers think so as well, too. I was going to bring up here. They are the betting favorite. Now, granted, by slim margins here over Arizona State and K-State to win the Big 12. So do you think they've kind of got a chance here to go all the way? Why not?
I think it hinges on Baron Morton's availability, because I believe I saw he had an off-season shoulder surgery, and he was kind of banged up off and on last year. If he can stay healthy, Texas Tech is definitely going to be in the mix. I feel like every year I say Texas Tech is a sleeper, and then they don't really pan out. But this year they seem for real, especially with that transfer class they're bringing in. If Morton can stay healthy, that engine is going to run. And yeah, I think the Big 12, widely speaking, is pretty wide open this year. So I could definitely see them there in the end at the Big 12 title game, a win away from the college football playoff.
Yeah, and Texas Tech also is one of the few schools in the Big 12 who does not play a non-conference Power 4 team. So their non-conference schedule is, I'm not saying as easy as can be, but pretty much. And that would lead me to believe that already coming into the season, you're really standing out. Of course, they're one of the several Big 12 schools who brings back quarterback and head coach. The only thing that might trip them up a little bit is that they've got a couple of weeks here where they have an away game without a bye week and just 1 week at a time. So they don't really go like back-to-back weeks, both away games, without a bye week in between. That helps out their schedule a little bit as well here too. The other schools here that I think are really interesting to bring up is Utah has the fourth highest betting odds. Now they're kind of tied here with like Baylor and BYU. I mean, there's really the numbers really get bigger here when you get down to Colorado and West Virginia and then Cincinnati and Oklahoma State. But besides that, all the top schools in the Big 12 seem like they're just neck and neck and odds makers wise. And I gotta say, I'm shocked to see Utah back up here this high because kind of referencing back here again, they do not return their quarterback. They don't play an out-of-conference Power 4 team, but they do play a Big 12 team in their non-conference, weirdly enough. And, I mean, they've got a couple of games here where they don't have to do back-to-back weeks without a bye on the road. So they also seem like one of the schools here that can just really light them up. What were your thoughts last year on Utah as you were going, hey, you know what, they were going to contend with OSU, that 1922 game, OSU lost 3 in Stillwater. I was really heartbroken after that one, but also thought, okay, well, we showed some promise there at the end. We had a bad day. All right, we didn't match up super well, but someone will come back, right?
Yeah, that's when it really started taking a downturn in my hopes for OSU's season after losing that game because the opportunities were there. And of course, we don't need to rehash all of that, but I do think that game goes differently. A couple plays go differently. OSU's season goes differently. But talking about Utah, Cam Rising still seems like a myth to me. Like I had always heard about him, and then he seemed like he never played for a few years. Like they kept hyping him up. He missed a whole season there, and then last year he maybe played in a few games. It seems like I didn't keep up with Utah too closely. But yeah, I feel like they had high hopes coming in there in Utah, and things didn't pan out for them either. I think they thought beating OSU in Stillwater, they were going to take off, and then I think they went on a pretty sizable losing streak after that, and it was a down year for them. I find it interesting that the odds makers are still kind of hedging their bets on Kyle Whittingham's consistency as a coach coming into this year, while they're not hedging their bets on Mike Gundy's consistency, or speaking over the body of his work. That is interesting to me, because if you look at their team coming into the season, I can't say I'm that impressed. I mean, Devin Dampier is going to be their quarterback this year, the transfer from New Mexico. He's good, but is he top of a Power 4 conference, leading a team to a college football playoff good? I don't know yet.
Yeah, that's one of the weird things here, is that Dampier got a lot of buzz from all Utah fans and everything of, he's going to take us to the next step here, get us back in control. We've seen undersized quarterbacks do that, but not many that I can recall that came from a lesser school like New Mexico. I mean, this guy's 5'10", less than 200. He doesn't have pro prospects as a quarterback, I couldn't think, unless he turns out to be Kyler Murray or something crazy. And then he just, when your team isn't that great, I have a lot of questions. It just is, he's played 2 years of college football, and really last year is the only year that he actually played a full season. And they just, I mean, all due respect here, I'm sure it's not all on his shoulders here, but they just didn't win a lot of games like in New Mexico. I don't remember them making any noise. They lost to Hawaii, lost to Wyoming, lost to Colorado State, up 6 points, and against Colorado State. I just, if you are the quarterback, for example, Oklahoma State here bringing in, Hoss Haney, I would think, all right, I'm getting really excited about a couple things here. And I could be my words here. Maybe Devin Dampier is the guy and Hoss Haney is just nothing, because we haven't seen him play football. We haven't seen Zane Flores learn the new pronunciation, at least recently here. But neither of those guys have played. So I don't want to be the Oklahoma State guys being a hypocrite here. I just don't see what the attractiveness is for a Utah quarterback who first year back. And also, every time I've ever watched Utah, they ground and pound. They do not have a mobile quarterback running around, on the edge here, making plays out of, basically out of form and doing everything. They just instead have a lot of guys who, hey, we're going to beat you because we're bigger. And then all of a sudden now you have a quarterback who's probably the smallest in the Big 12, if not close to it. I always want to say Jalen Daniels there at KU is one of the smallest quarterbacks in the Big 12 just because he looks like he is on the field comparatively. But I don't think he's 5'10". And I don't know, Utah might be being generous here with the height here, I would think.
They're betting on his athleticism. They're betting on his development and his athleticism. At New Mexico, he didn't have a whole lot of weapons around him. He kind of made plays. So Utah, of course, he'll have a better skill group around him, but I think their idea is he's going to extend plays or make plays himself that kind of pushes them over the top, gives them those wins above replacement, if we're talking about, a baseball phrase here. But I think the jury's still out. He's unproven on the Power 4 level, of course. But it would be about me to say, I don't think he's going to turn out, and then he goes and wins Big 12 Player of the Year. And he certainly has the tools to do it.
Well, there are two schools here we haven't really touched on that coming into the season, I go, yeah, you've got to be top of the Big 12 here. That's Arizona State. Of course, win the Big 12 last year. They don't return with their running back, in Cam Scadaboo, but they do return Sam Levitt. And then the other team who played in the Big 12 championship last year at Iowa State, they do have Rocco Beck returning as well too here, shaping out scheduling wise. They have one of the, easy-ish schedules. They play one non-conference Power 4 opponent, which is of course Iowa, and then that's for Iowa State. And then for Arizona State, they don't have a ton that I'm really too worried about either. They have one non-conference Power 4 opponent, and they, of course, return their head coach and quarterback. It seems like Dillingham there has got it all rocking and rolling. The only issue they could have is who's your running back going to be. But I got to say, after watching the Big 12 championship, they didn't even need Scadaboo. They just rolled over Iowa State. Wasn't really that close. So what are your thoughts on Arizona State and Iowa State here coming back for this year?
To start with Arizona State, Sam Levitt was such a surprise to me last year. He kind of had an up and down time at Michigan State. Arizona State was kind of the move for him as he was still looking for some playing time, but they didn't really know coming in, I don't think, if he was going to be the guy. And then he got the job and took over from there and turned into, one of the top quarterbacks in the Big 12. I think this season is going to be a test for him without Scadaboo, because I think anytime Levitt would get rattled or get in a little bit of a rut in games, you could just hand it off to Cam Scadaboo all 3 downs and he would plow his way through the line. I think Levitt's going to be tested more this season to kind of win or lose games for Arizona State. And I know toward the end, in the Big 12 title game and even in the college football playoff, Levitt was there. I mean, he was making plays himself, but can he do it over the full length of the season? That's the question for Arizona State. Lord knows Kenny Dillingham's a motivator, so he's going to get all he can out of Sam Levitt, but we'll see. Iowa State, kind of a similar situation. Rocco Becht had 2 great receivers in Noel and Higgins to throw to last year. I don't really know who they're going to replace that tandem with this year. So we'll see. Is it more of a case of the wide receivers made Rocco Becht, or is it Rocco Becht made the receivers and made that offense work? He certainly, and it's hard for me to believe this now, time flies by so fast, but Rocco Becht's one of the more experienced quarterbacks in the Big 12 coming into this season. Iowa State will be there, but also Iowa State is Iowa State. It seems like they get so close, but they're never really able to punch through that glass ceiling. So, like I said earlier, the Big 12 was wide open this year, it feels like. And it always seems that those teams from the previous year that there's so much hype around kind of fade off by mid-season. And I see that with both Arizona State and Iowa State this year.
Yeah, I personally do not think watching Arizona State win the way they did, you're right. It was really, they just had that release valve and Scadaboo to be able to get them to a couple plays here and there. I mean, heck, he threw a touchdown pass in college football playoffs. Like, what are we doing here? Would be my question on any odds makers having Arizona State that high. But then again, all the Big 12 schools are grouped really close together at the top. I mean, top 6 schools in the Big 12, odds makers wise, they're all pretty much even. There's not a betting favorite where you're going to make some money off of, because all of a sudden you're going to have a school that's really not favored that highly do real well. But there is a school here that last year when we played them, it was granted in Waco against Baylor. I thought, man, you know what? This is the game that slipped away. Talked about this on a couple different podcasts now too. But Sawyer Robertson and Baylor Bears, I mean, guy transfers in from Mississippi State. I didn't think anything about Baylor last year. But of course, if you listened to me a year ago, I was going, hey, lucky to be us, right? We went to the Big 12 championship. We returned all these starters. I was going into it. I didn't think anything could hurt us. But then that Baylor game last year is one of those where I look back and I'm like, man, that was winnable. But now they've got Sawyer Robertson with another year under his belt, 22-year-old guy, so he's a little bit older. Sam Levitt's 20, so maybe there's kind of an age deal here, but just really more experience. What are your thoughts on Baylor? Do you think that Dave Aranda can stick around, and maybe he's already really on the hot seat? Who knows?
This is the hot seat year for Dave Aranda. I'm honestly kind of surprised that he's still around given his tenure at Baylor. I know he started out well, but then kind of went down. Yet last year was a bit of a bounce back year, but still, I mean, not quite to the top level of the Big 12. Baylor doesn't really jump out to me on paper coming into this year. I think they'll be good. They'll be a bowl qualifying team, but do I see them as a college football playoff team? I don't know. Sawyer Robertson, he's good, but he doesn't blow me away. It seems like Baylor always leaves the door open in games that they play against specifically conference opponents. So, yeah, I haven't had a chance to really dive into their transfer class or really get a good grip on how the defense is shaping up for them. But I see them in that 4, 5, 6 range again this year. I don't really think they're going to break through.
All right, we've talked about everyone who's at the top. Is there anyone that I should be mentioning? Is there a UCF? Is there I could not think that Houston would be somehow comparative, but then again, I'm having Oklahoma State at least get 6 wins after getting 3 last year, so maybe I shouldn't be talking. But is there any dark horse teams here that we haven't touched on that are at least worth a couple more minutes?
Calvin, you're going to call me such a homer because I live here in Lawrence, but I'm going to say the Kansas Jayhawks. This is the post-hype sleeper of the Big 12 because they bring back Jalen Daniels, who, granted, had a really rough year last year. He had trouble with turnovers, but the guy that we saw in 2023 is still there. So if he can keep his head clear and play like he did in that 9-4 season for KU, they are loading up in the portal. I think they're a top 40 portal class, which for KU football, 5 to 7 years ago, that's unheard of that they are bringing in this much talent, whether just through a recruiting class or a transfer class. Lance Leipold, what he's done in Lawrence has been transformative, just culture wise, and they're going to be in the new stadium this year. So maybe that's some incentive for KU to play a little bit better. Devin Neal, losing him will hurt, but my goodness, if you go look at their depth chart, they have still plenty of playmakers on that football team. I mean, you have Jalen Daniels at quarterback. They're bringing in a guy named LaShawn Williams, who was a running back at Iowa. That dude is a tank. Go look at his film. He is just running over guys. And then you pair him with Daniel Highshaw, who's been great out of the backfield for the Jayhawks the past couple years. I think KU is a sleeper this year in the Big 12. There's some question marks in the receiving core, some question marks on defense, but given how close they were to like a 10-2 season, if you take out one play in 6 of their games, their season's completely flipped. If they can avoid those game-changing plays for the worse, I think they're going to be right there at the end, top 3, possibly a Big 12 championship appearance.
Well, I now got to talk about Oklahoma State here a little bit here because you have the KU fandom in there. I mean, yeah, brand new stadium that they're opening up. It just seems like we are in a new era maybe for KU football. They're able to keep Lance Leipold around, and he doesn't jump ship the second he does anything good. So KU's actually able to keep a guy in house there, build up the program a little bit. Jalen Daniels, this is his 3rd year starting, so he's got to be good at this point. I think, 4th, right? Their 4th year starting. He's got to have it down by now. I would guess, maybe hope, if I'm a KU fan. And like you said, Iowa running back. I mean, you're getting a Power 4 transfer in, maybe out of the Big Ten. That's not another ACC guy transferring in either. So that's really great. But of course, you're got to talk a little bit more about Oklahoma State. I want to say, I do not have great expectations for Oklahoma State this year. I have decent expectations. I feel like there's definitely a way that Oklahoma State wins 7 games. It just is the way that the schedule works out. And it's kind of the way Gundy does things. Whenever you didn't think they'd get back to a bowl game, somehow they do. 2014 is a prime example of that. All of a sudden, Mason Rudolph comes out of nowhere, and you win 3 games, and you win Bedlam on a punt it again, Bob, and you're off to the races. You're playing in a bowl game. But he broke the bowl game streak last year. No, that can't be fun. And now Oklahoma State brings in an incredibly good transfer class comparatively to the previous 2 years. So I've got to think that helps out a ton. 1, last year we weren't bringing in a ton of guys because why would you? We had so many guys returning. But 2, now you're bringing in a ton of new coaches, basically every single position on the entire staff here, except for Gundy. And you don't know who's starting at quarterback. No one does at this point. Gundy probably will have 2 guys starting for the first couple games. I could see Hosseini and Zane Flores, as well as Banks Bowen, the transfer out of Tulsa, all getting snaps at Oregon, especially if that game goes the way that probably odds makers think it will, which I kind of agree. It's in Eugene, and it's Oregon. So I don't want to be the total optimist, though. Tell me why Oklahoma State doesn't get to six wins this year.
It has to start with quarterback. I'm pretty upset, Calvin, that Garrett Rangel entered the portal. In my opinion, I thought he was the best quarterback in that room for Oklahoma State. And we saw flashes before he broke his collarbone last year. The offense had completely flipped when Alan Bowman was in control versus that game that Garrett Rangel started. So I could stay on my soapbox all day about losing Rangel to the portal. But I think the reason that OSU wouldn't get back to a 6+ win season would be Hosseini doesn't pan out like they thought he would. or Zane Flores doesn't pan out like they thought he would, or either of them have injury issues during the season. I think Banks Bowen, I know that there is some hype around him, but he's still very young. I think this is going to be his true freshman season, so I wouldn't put too much bank into Banks Bowen. Pardon the pun there.
Great podcast title there. I mean, well, he's got his dad's on staff with Oklahoma State too. I think he's a quality control guy. I have a good feeling here. If you're a Bowen family member, you were going, hey, they only have 2 quarterbacks now. Come on down. Because last year the third stringer started the final game of the season. So maybe that's a little bit. I do not to cut you off, but I do want to talk about Rangel a little bit because this is one of my questions here. He had a great first half against BYU where he played decently well. He has a run for, basically all the rushing yards he has in college is that run. He played a total of 13 games for Oklahoma State. He had 180 attempts and 93 completions for 51.7%. Now, I'm including bowl stats in here as well, too, for 2023 and 2022. But do you think Rangel just would have been the best for Gundy's new offense? Do you think he would have been the best for just because he has the most experience? Because I got to say, when he played in Lawrence against KU, it was nothing. And we knew he was going to play. It's not like he came in a situation just like thrust into it. He was starting this game. And you had Gunnar Gundy, of course, getting some snaps in there too. So I understand, it's all that great, but I've seen every side of it here. I've seen, hey, Rangel should start over Spencer Sanders because Sanders looks injured or doesn't play in that well. Sanders ends his career in college, for Oklahoma State at least, 2nd overall in passing yards. A lot of that's due to the longevity he started, but you're also not going to start that much if you're not at least decent and good. And Sanders took us to a Big 12 championship game and got us a win in the Fiesta Bowl where he brought us all the way back. So Rangel was the guy in waiting. I get that. It's got to be annoying. Bowman comes in, wins the starting job. He just looks the most dependable in the 23 season. And last year, of course, it just did not go good at all. But it seems like Gundy made that switch too late, and then Rangel has a freak injury. Am I just not seeing more of the promise of Rangel maybe in the new offense we'd be running, or what am I missing here with him? Just because I never saw anything from Rangel besides kind of like 2 running plays where I was like, hey, he just didn't never seem that accurate. I'm not trying to beat the guy down here. I'm sure he'll be good wherever he goes next and however he does. But I just didn't see it at Oklahoma State where I thought, you know what? We can't lose that guy. That was never crossed my mind here.
To start, the first game he started back in 2022 at KU, that was his true freshman year. So I'm willing to cut him some slack. I was actually at that game, and it didn't matter who OSU put at quarterback. That was not going to be a victory for the Cowboys that day. You could just tell by the vibes. I actually didn't jump on the Rangel train until the start of the 2023 season at the South Alabama game, actually. The massacre that was. There's something about just seeing the guys in warmups, because I was at that South Alabama game. There was just so much more zip out of the hands of Rangel on his passes than there was from Gunnar Gundy and Alan Bowman. And that's what first drew me to him. And seeing Alan Bowman's struggles where it just seemed like all of his passes floated and there was no oomph behind them. That's what made me really want to get Rangel in there. And then we saw in the BYU game last year an offense that was dead on arrival going into that game. Rangel takes over and it had some juice. I mean, the Pokes were beating BYU while Rangel was still healthy during that game. Obviously the injury changed things. We know how that turned out, but I just thought he had better command than Bowman did, certainly, and really anybody else that played the quarterback position last year. And given that coming into this season, that this is his 4th year, so he would have had some experience. Also, that's what I saw in him was the experience. He's been around, and I thought his passes out of the hand just looked good. They just looked more professional level than the Alan Bowman throws of recent years. So maybe it's just me being sick of watching Alan Bowman throw the football, which nothing on Alan. It's just I saw it a lot through 2 years, and some of those interceptions were frustrating. But yeah, I thought losing Rangel was a big loss, but obviously I don't think he would have entered the portal if the coaching staff told him he was going to be the guy. I mean, they probably told him, you're probably going to be our number 3 or number 2, and he wanted to get a starting spot somewhere else. So I'm intrigued to see what Haas Haney has, and I'm intrigued to see what Zane Flores has, because I really don't know a lot about either of them in a game setting, just because we haven't seen Flores really at all. And Haney only ran the ball last year for TCU, I believe. So obviously the coaching staff sees something, but of what I had seen, I thought Rangel was the best.
Yeah, the fascinating thing about last year's season is that you play BYU. It's the 4th game in the Big 12 season. So at that point, we're no longer ranked. Many people, because we were ranked in the first 4 weeks of the season, that win against Arkansas helped us get all the way from 16th to 13th in the rankings and moved us up to the highest spot we saw in the rankings. But then the Tulsa game, we actually dropped back a spot. I don't know how, but we did. It's rankings for you, though. I'm assuming it's because Ollie Gordon didn't have 300 yards rushing, but who knows? The Alan Bowman experience to me is, what if the UCF game was every game? Like, what if the 2023 UCF game was every game? And all of a sudden, that's what it was last year. It was like, hey, just doesn't have it today. Just going to really float everything, and then all of a sudden it's just going to be, okay, well, we're in this game against K-State a little bit, and then all of a sudden we're just absolutely not, because there's interceptions, there's fumbles, all confidence is lost. The confidence went away early, but also Bowman is a true, like, Brett Favre-ish gunslinger, not from the Brett Favre accuracy side, of course, but from the, I'm throwing it. I was told I could throw it. I'm throwing it. And I think he ditched the ball a lot last year, but not enough. But then again, the most confounding thing I'll remember from the 2024 season for Oklahoma State is what happened to the offensive line. That was supposedly going to be the best offensive line we had in years. It was returning again. So good. There really was not a lot of injuries to the whole team the whole year on offense. Defense, yeah, Colin Oliver and Nick Martin, a 3rd-round draft pick and a 5th-round draft pick, sure, but we lose to BYU and we still put up 35 points. We held them to 38. That's okay, not great, but like the Arizona State game, I mean, they score 42. It just is. It's so odd to me where basically that K-State game is where the wheels fell off completely, and Alan Bowman's kind of entire time fell off. So I understand wanting to see a new guy. I never saw from Rangel where I was like, oh man, there's the deal. Like, there's the bright spot after watching so much college football over so many years, going to the practices. I mean, I'm assuming you worked for the Ocollie for a little bit, going to all the practices as well too, right? Like, being in there, seeing, okay, and now myself, seeing Zane Flores, seeing Haas Haney, they both look fine in practice. I mean, it's not like I'm seeing anything where I'm like, you know what? He's dropping every single time, 7 steps instead of 5. Something's weird. Like, I'm not that guy to analyze it down that much, but I just never saw it from Rangel. I am curious, though, in your mind, granted, the footage on Flores and Haney that is available to the public, that's basically spring game footage and highlights on OSU Max and everything, is about the same from practices, to be clear. But it looks like, one, Zane is much more of a prototypical quarterback we've seen in the Gundy era. A guy who is mobile, but can pass it real well. I can put a lot under the ball and can just throw with a lot of accuracy. Haney seems like the guy who will run through you. I mean, he is built like a tank. He's built almost more like, trying to think of here. He's almost built more like Blake Bell, but being 6 feet tall than he is other guys. Which would you rather see start for Oklahoma State? Just knowing basically these things here. Like, what would you rather see?
I would rather see Flores, probably, just because I believe much more in a passing-oriented offense. Not saying that Haney can't pass the ball, but I know that if it were Flores, OSU would probably tend to pass more or depend less on the quarterback run. I don't necessarily think Flores is going to be the guy, though. If I had to bet today, I think it's going to be Haney because of his connection with Doug Meacham. So I do think we're headed more toward that smash mouth QB run offense in the fall. But as for what I would prefer, if I were in Mike Gundy's spot, I would prefer to do more of a air raid offense and go with floors. So it is a real. It'll tell a lot about OSU's DNA going into the season, who they go with at the QB position, and who knows if they flip back and forth between the two. We'll probably be able to pretty evidently see the difference in the offensive setup, depending on if these guys split starts throughout the season. So there's a difference between what I want and what I think is going to happen, though, Calvin.
Yeah, the very interesting thing that Haas and Floors, or Haas and Zane, actually is both the same here, have in common is they both were offered full ride scholarships for Nebraska. So you got the Nebraska Player of the Year, a guy who, Zane, who seems like he's been in the program for forever. Like, all right, eventually he's got to get his fair chance. I kind of felt like that way with Ringel for a little bit here and there, but at some point I was like, you know what? Starting bowl games, starting games against KU when they're looking to win their first Big 12 game, or going the first bowl game in forever. Like, Ringel was put in spots that were not favorable, but he had spots in options. The Oklahoma State quarterback room right now has 18 pass attempts combined from the top two quarterbacks here. I'm very curious to see what happens. I do agree with you. I think it'll probably be Haas. Like, I don't think that there's a way that Zane starts week one. Everything from the spring game indicates to me that they're trying to figure it all out right now, and they're going through it, and that's what you'd want. Going for spring practices, that also is what it would indicate as well, too. I mean, when Milwaukee Smith left, it's not like, hey, all of a sudden the more reps came to Zane and Haas. It really seems like in the spring game, they're trying to basically Rangel and Milwaukee Smith a service of like, hey, we're going to make sure you guys get passes, you guys get seen. But at the end of the day, Smith was not known as like one of these super high recruits. Rangel was known as a 4-star recruit, just like Zane. And I'm very interested to see how this goes, because I think this season will be kind of Gundy's like legacy season of such. If this season goes, there's 7 or 8 wins, which is in the Big 12 when everything's so close together, it's possible. I don't think Texas Tech's a game that we win this year. But I don't know. I mean, like, anything happened in the Big 12. We scheduled Arizona State for our homecoming game last year, and they ended up winning the conference. So that kind of indicates to me of like, all right, who knows what's going to happen here. But this is a team that year in, year out has beat teams like Texas. We owned Texas for the past, almost 2 decades, record-wise in football. And now Texas has always had those athletes. They've always had those guys. So how will Gundy bounce back? Will this be the last season he's the head coach because he'll kind of walk away into retirement after a 5-7 season, or will he, maybe even get booted out at that point? I don't know. I'm still very surprised how close he was to getting fired last year. When he's just been, I'm 31. Gundy's been the coach my entire life. Like, I remember Les Miles a little bit, but I remember more of the 02-03 wins in Bedlam and going to one of those games with my dad when I was in like 2nd and 3rd grade than I do actually remember Les Miles eating grass. So where do you stand on the Gundy legacy experience right now as well?
I don't think Gundy will ever leave on his own volition. I think OSU would have to boot him if he's not going to be the coach anytime soon. I think the dude just lives and breathes OSU football, despite what the on-field product is right now. This season will show a lot about kind of where he is on his dedication to the program. They've obviously been hitting the road with how many guys they're bringing into the portal. So that is promising as an OSU fan, because you want to see something be done after last season. But this is the first time he's coming off a losing season, if I'm correct, since his first year, right? Back in 05, was it? That was his first year, right? Yeah. So
yeah,
this is kind of uncharted territory in a way for Mike, coming off of a losing season. So It'll be interesting. Having two new coordinators obviously will cause some volatility here. I don't know if those are going to pan out. I can't say they were the guys I would have gone after personally, but they certainly have experience. So we'll see. I think this season is really fitting into the old adage I have learned as an Oklahoma State fan, Calvin, and that is if you go into a season with high expectations for OSU, they always underperform. But if you go into a season with no expectations for OSU, they always overperform. And this reminds me a lot of how I felt coming into the 2023 season. That they then made a Big 12 championship appearance. I feel very similarly hype-wise going into this year than I was 2023. So, we'll see.
Yeah, there's so many different things with Oklahoma State if you had told me this going into the season, I would expect this, and happening the opposite. I mean, Ollie Gordon being drafted in the 6th round, Alan Bowman being one of the 3 starting quarterbacks, and then ends up taking Oklahoma State all the way to the championship. And a 10-win season. Like, all of this stuff here, it's just a random assortment of Gundyisms at the end of the day. I did not expect Gundy to be calling the fans broke and poor and all type of stuff in last season. I never thought it'd get to that point. But also, I didn't expect him to go, entire coaching staff is going to roll over and I'm still staying here. I just didn't expect that to happen as well. I expected probably a new defensive coordinator no matter what. Nardo just seemed like he was just too new and was constantly the guy that everyone was poking at of like, what are we doing here? We're allowing 56 points to Texas Tech. We're just getting run out the door by Colorado, 52-0. I understand Colorado had a Heisman Trophy winner, but wasn't like he played quarterback. They had a 5th round quarterback, in fact. So in this past weekend here, it's just such an odd deal when I look back at every single year of Gundy's coaching career, like you said. And I'm like, all right, well, Alex Cate, he's going to be the guy. To me, he's the Gary Rangel that we'll kind of look back on of like, well, that didn't go well at all. And nothing on him, but I don't know what. And the one thing I'd say that's a huge props to Gundy every single year is that no matter what, when guys transfer out of Oklahoma State, I don't really remember where they're going or what happens. Like, I don't think Kendall Daniels is just going to light it up at OU. I'm sure there's exceptions here that I'm forgetting about, and I'm sure in the comments I'll just get roasted for this, but it's not like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe we let this quarterback go, or I can't believe we let this guy transfer out and look how well he did. He couldn't stand Gundy anymore, so all of a sudden he's doing this. Instead, it's, okay, did anyone know anything about Chuba Hubbard in the recruiting draft, in the recruiting whatsoever? Ollie Gordon, we knew about. We knew about early on. There's that season in 2022 where I'm like, hey, can we get Ollie Gordon a little bit more touches? Because it seems like he could use them, and we could use everything we could to do a little better here. But Chuba Hubbard, no idea. LD Brown, I've lost track of where he's gone. I hope he's doing great. But like maybe Logba, 1st-round draft pick, Russell Okung back in 2008. Like, there's just so many different guys where I'm like going, man, Gundy really just made, what the old adage is, you make lemons to lemonade. And I think Gundy's really just he's taken like seeds at that point here, and he's making lemonade out of them within a year sometimes as well, too. Now, it didn't turn out that great last year for a couple of our guys, but the amount of guys that went into the NFL, even including in undrafted free agents and all type of stuff here, was 8. And to look down south 90 miles, it was not that many from OU. And that's the first time in a long, long time where I'm going, you know what? This is a really talented team. It's a fluky season. Let's see what we got. Like this could be a really good year. Gundy could know what he's doing. It does worry me a lot, though. It seems like he brought in his own boys. It does worry me a lot, though, that I always want to say Todd Meacham and combine both their names, but it's a former Saints NFL guy where I don't know the Saints that well for the defensive schemes. Grantham's been around a long time, so the longevity play to me is awesome. They're bringing in a lot of recruits, but there's both ways I can talk about Grantham. And there's also both ways I can talk about Meacham. I mean, Meacham is closer to Gundy's age than any other offensive coordinator we've seen come in new. Casey Dunn was similar in age to Gundy, but it seems like there is a plan of let's at least get to be this good this year. And that's what I'm very hopeful and very excited about. Going through it here, do you want to give an Oklahoma State win-loss prediction here on the season? I can rattle off real quick the opponents. We'll go through. All right, so in this one out here, got UT Martin win, I'm assuming.
I think so. I would think so.
August 28th, a little August football. I like it. Oklahoma State at Oregon. I'm just going to say, I'm not saying win. If you do, that's where we differ first here.
Nope. I have a loss on that one.
All right. Tulsa. We host Tulsa. We host Banks Bowen's former team. I'm saying a win. I mean, we went there last year. We won. Why can't we win it again this year? I will say, I really wish I'd gone to the game last year because tickets were cheap. I just thought, you know what? I'm going to the Utah game next week. I'll save my couple bucks for that. But that was unfortunate. We're saying win here for Tulsa.
Yeah, Tulsa's got a new coach too. They're kind of in bad shape. They lost a lot of guys. There's been a lot of turnover for them. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty comfortable about OSU in that game.
All right, and then I'm not trying to make this too long, so I'm going to say the next 3 in a row here for the first Big 12 games. We host Baylor, go to Arizona, and then host Houston. And those are all 3 games all in succession here. What's your thoughts here? How do we end out those Baylor at Arizona, Houston?
I think if you win 2 out of 3, it's doing well. I don't think they'll be Baylor. I'm pretty confident about Arizona going out to Arizona and winning, and I'll say beating Houston at home. So I would say 2 out of 3 wins there is what I'm feeling.
I feel the exact same. Arizona, from every single way you want to look at it, they lose their best wide receiver. We know he's the 8th overall draft pick this year. Noah Feda's back. They still bring back the same coach, but they've lost 31 3-stars and 2 4-stars in the portal. Their NIL valuation is just down. They're like 14. I mean, when there's an index score here ranking as well too, which I don't love bringing up because I don't understand fully exactly how it works, but Arizona's -3. Texas Tech is 100. And it's just such a wide gap in between those. I just thought I just got to bring it up here. So I don't think the Arizona game is going to be too terribly tough, but I don't want to say that without saying it's an away game. You never know. The next games here, of course, I'll go 3 in a row again here. Hosting Cincinnati, at Texas Tech, and then going to Lawrence. And of course, the Cincinnati game here, homecoming. So feeling the win on homecoming, right? We got to bounce back with a win this year.
I'm feeling confident against Cincinnati. I actually really like Brendan Sorsby, who is their expected quarterback coming into the year. But I mean, if you're able to control his game, I like OSU. And you know, the Pokes always are up for homecoming. Might not have looked like it last year, but they're usually always up for homecoming. So I'll go with the win against Cincinnati, but the next 2 games, I'm actually going to pick KU. And then, of course, we've talked about Texas Tech. I don't think they're going to beat them in Lubbock.
Yeah, I think Texas Tech is the odds-on favorite here in my mind to win the Big 12. They're by some margins here and there, very, very thinly going to win the Big 12. So I don't love picking Oklahoma State in that one when we got to go to Lubbock, and it's a 7-hour drive from Stillwater. It's not close. So for all those guys and gals who are making that trip here, I just don't think we're going to have that much of an away crowd there. But right now, you're counting as 5 wins overall, I believe, right? UT Martin, Tulsa, then we're saying 2 out of 3 here, but we're saying really Arizona, Houston, and then Cincy here. I think we got 5 wins. So we got to find one more win here amongst the last 3 games. Because I do agree with you, the KU game, brand new stadium for KU, Jalen Daniels, who knows where we'll be at that point, but we host K-State, we play at UCF, Lord, and then we host Iowa State to end out the season. So, I don't know, we got a bye week in between the KU and K-State game at least, so we got that going for us, but I think that's where rubber meets the road, as my dad would say.
I think OSU is going to get one of those patented, nobody expected them to win this game at home win. I think it's going to be against K-State coming off the bye week. I think they're going to lose at KU and have the bye week to recover. Everybody's going to be down on them, and then they're going to upset K-State at home. coming out of the bye. And then in typical OSU fashion, I think they're going to go down to Orlando and get their butt kicked. Now, maybe they will actually bring their rain gear, unlike they did last time, which I think really hurt in that game. But yeah, I'll say win against K-State, lose against UCF, just because that goes against any form of logic, at least how things stand right now. And then I'll say a loss against Iowa State to end the year.
Yeah, the one thing going for the UCF game is that it's not their space game. Their space game is against Houston. Perfect matchup. Way to go with that. We don't want to play you for the space game. I'm good on passing that one after seeing the last time we played for their space game. Cool uniforms for UCF. Way to go. But yeah, I don't predict like you know what, that's a win. The K-State one I would love. Then Iowa State is they're one of the favorites that also do real well in the Big 12 here. Now, granted, senior day, there's not a lot of seniors on the roster, oddly enough, but there are a lot of guys who are transfer seniors who I haven't followed Oklahoma State for that long. But it's not the Brennan Presleys of the world, and and Alan Bowman's year in college or whatever it may be. But yeah, there's the K-State, UCF. I think we got to try to win one of those two, because you're right. Once Iowa State, I just feel like they're either putting it all together or they've unfortunately got some injuries, and that's how we win. But it's one of those last three. I think we win one out of the final three games of the season, if I'm being really optimistic. And if Gundy pulls a rabbit out of his hat and stumps us all, then we win 2 out of 3, if not 3 out of 3. And all of a sudden we're going to a 9-win season. And heck, BYU fans are buying their Big 12 championship tickets, and we're knocking them out of it somehow, some way. So that's what happened last year to them, which was just absolutely bizarre. I cannot imagine going to the Big 12 championship after my team's not playing. If I'm not especially when I'm not anywhere close. Like BYU fans, man, that is take those airline plane vouchers, save them up, resell the tickets. I don't know what the deal was. It was funny.
Yeah, well, you got to keep in mind there's BYU fans everywhere. No matter where you are, they'll show up. So I'm sure a lot of those fans. I mean, I know there was probably a heavy contingent coming from Provo, but I'm sure a lot of those were actually based in DFW. A lot of those BYU fans. So yeah, I mean, if I were ever in that situation, I'd probably go just to say I went to a Big 12 title game. But you could also just resell your tickets. There's nothing wrong with that as well.
Yeah, well, last thing I want to hear say your same is that I don't think anyone's talking about it, but Avery Johnson was going to be the real deal. And then all of a sudden, Will Howard has kind of said, hey, we're good. We like Avery Johnson. Will Howard transfers out to Ohio State and wins the national championship. So I don't know what's going on with Chris Kleiman and the K-State Wildcats, but I do know last season before it started, talking with several K-State fans, part of the College Total Network, they were all saying, yeah, it was cool. We were glad to see Will go. We felt like we understood the Will Howard experience. And now looking back on it, after the Oregon game, I understood. That is the Will Howard experience. You are getting the Oregon game, clock management, good and bad, all type of deal. But then guy who goes on, wins national championship, puts a ring on his finger. I mean, that's a little bit, granted, probably on his right hand, not his left, because it's not a wedding ring. But yeah, that's just it's a fun part of it here. So, well, Sam, thanks so much here for joining on the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast here. You are the KU fan I know, the OSU fan I know amongst the KU fans, I should say. So where can everyone find you and hear more of your thoughts and opinions on 12th season?
Yes, if you want to see my 3 tweets a season for about OSU football, well, actually, depending on how bad or good things are going, I might tweet more. At Sam Henderson 44 on Twitter/X. So if you're down on your luck and want to feel bad with another OSU fan, you might see a GIF of mine that I might send out, just doom and gloom. Or if the Pokes are playing well, I will add a bunch of exclamation points to a tweet. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Well, I know you're on TikTok as well, too. It's connected over there. A bunch of the podcast clips are making it all the way over there to TikTok and Instagram Reels, all type of stuff here as well. So if you're not already following the podcast on YouTube, please do so here and subscribe. And then also follow at CGA Tour on everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram. I don't know where the CGA Tour is not at this point. I mean, I'm just going to put on billboards here randomly around state of Oklahoma. I don't know. There's probably like a sky blue here that's going to pop up out of nowhere. That's the opposite of blue sky. And all of a sudden be trying to put that on Z or whatever as well. So, anyways, thanks so much for joining here, and we'll catch you guys again soon.